Raj, thank you so much for joining us to talk about FedEx. It's almost 2 months now since you became CEO, and already you're unveiling your plans to grow the company. In fact, you met with a large investor group recently, and the first thing you told them, we are at a pivotal moment in our 50-year history. What's the message you want to get across to everyone as the new CEO?
That's indeed exactly right. We have built a very strong foundation over the last 50 years. Building networks is not easy at all, and it takes a lot of time and patience to build these networks. And so now we are at a pivotal point where we can build off that foundation and create more value for all our stakeholders. The second part of the story is the fact that we have such a strong physical network, but it's also got a strong underpinning of a digital network. And going forward, we're going to create value not only from the physical aspects of our network, but also on the digital aspects of our network. We're here to create the legacy of the next 25 years.
And with that as the backdrop, you laid out your plan for 2025 and what's going to happen over the next 3 years. And you told everyone that earnings are going to grow as much as 19% a year. You're expecting double-digit operating margins and an adjusted dividend payout ratio of at least 25%. Sounds like you are setting a very high bar for yourself, Raj.
We are in the middle of a fast-growing e-commerce market. We have a strong portfolio. And then in the fact that we find ourselves in the center of the e-commerce ecosystem, we're in fact critical infrastructure for e-commerce. So the question is, how do we balance our growth going forward? How do we improve our operating margins of our individual operating companies and then deliver the returns that we talked about? We believe we have significant upside and great potential for FedEx going forward.
Some people were kind of surprised that you took such a bold action so early in your tenure as CEO. Did you feel that you needed to be bold right away because of all the pressure that FedEx has been getting from the activist group D.E. Shaw and your agreement with them to add 3 new board members, directors to the FedEx board? Did you feel a sense of urgency that you have to show that as the new boss, you're really doing things to make FedEx a even stronger company?
The short answer to that one, that was not the motivation. In fact, we've been planning for this event for almost a year. And these plans were already in place over the last several months, well before any conversation that we had with D.E. Shaw. The message that I'm trying to get across here is that the networks that we have taken time to build over this time is very valuable. And it's really that pivot that we're now doing is to make sure that we create value from the networks.
What will it take for FedEx to reach your goals? I mean, what are the key things that the company needs to be doing that it's not doing right now?
It's about execution now, and the fact that we have to make sure that we have a balanced growth in our portfolio. The fact that each of our operating companies have to improve their efficiency in their operations using technology and driving their operating margins. And we also be very disciplined in the way we spend our capital and improve our return on invested capital. When you put those 3 things together, it drives significant value to all our shareholders.
You told investors that you don't think a recession would weigh down all the plans that you have. Talk us through that, because just about every economist we talk to these days is warning about a long recession.
To be very clear, that's not exactly what I said. What I said was our plans do not assume a deep and prolonged recession. And if we have a deep and prolonged recession, then it's a different matter altogether. We have weathered different storms before, and we are able to flex our networks, and we are able to manage through these time periods usually. So I'm not, any particular quarter, any particular 6-month period. We're talking about a 3-year time period where the economy might go down, but also might come back up. And so there are opportunities that, again, I don't manage this company for any particular quarter as much as I manage it for a period of time, and this is a 3-year goal that I'm very confident of.
What about some of the other pain points? To what extent are you factoring in a continuation of supply chain disruptions, for example, or are you figuring that the supply chain issues are going to go away and it's not much of a concern?
Well, the supply chain factors are two issues. One is the lack of semiconductors, for example, and the other one is the transportation bottlenecks. On the first point, I think we are maybe a year or two away from that getting sorted out because of the classic supply chain bullwhip effect on that. On the transportation side of the equation, I expect that to get sorted out much sooner.
But meanwhile, while you're planning this new growth trajectory for your company, what impact could supply chain have on what you're trying to do?
Well, we have dialed in some of those impacts, but I think, to the extent that the supply chain impacts manufacturing and that manufacturing impacts demand for our services, obviously will be impacted. So we've been conservative in our volume growth levels in this next 3-year time frame, and it dials in some of those things into effect here.
Consumer spending also has to be an important component in your success. I mean, up until now, people have been coping with price hikes, but now everybody's complaining about higher gas prices, higher food prices. What's your take on how the consumer is doing and how a belt tightening on their part could mean a slowdown in package volumes at FedEx when you're trying to do just the opposite, increasing them?
Those things are, they again, obviously weigh against us in the short term. So we have to deal with these issues in the short term. But again, over a 3-year period, if you think about the e-commerce represented about 16% of retail prior to the pandemic. At the peak of the pandemic, it represented 22%, and now it is 20%. So it's being reset, but still significantly higher than 16%. So we expect e-commerce on a secular basis to continue to grow once this reset is over. So again, over a 3-year period, we're very comfortable. Once again, we're dialing in pretty conservative volume growth in our forecasts.
Well, we can't talk about FedEx without talking about UPS.
Sure.
People are always making the comparisons, as you know, and UPS has been making changes in the past few years. And the results have been a strong performance, whether you're talking about profits, operating margins, even the stock has gone way up. Are there any takeaway lessons for FedEx in all of this?
Well, financially, almost every company is trying to achieve those kind of goals. I think what we have doing is, again, to make sure that to build on the foundation that we've created. And that's very important. And FedEx prides itself on entrepreneurship. We pride ourselves on differentiation. And those are the kind of things, and customer experience, and then the diversity of our customer base. And that's what's driving us. And that's ultimately is sustainable for a much longer period of time.
Let's turn, Raj, and talk about leadership and talking a little bit more about you personally. You've been working at FedEx for 30 years now.
That's right.
In fact, it was your first job out of college, but at the time you thought you wouldn't be hired. It was a long shot, but you did. So tell us what happened.
Well, that's one of those things where it was in the month of August in 1991, in the middle of the recession. And I had just finished my MBA from University of Texas, Austin. I was walking into my apartment when my apartment mate was on the phone talking to FedEx, and he basically said, "I'm leaving the country and not interested or whatnot." He put the phone down and said, "Who are you talking to?" And he says, "FedEx." And I said, "They're coming to campus." He said, "Give me the number, let me call them." So I called them and said, "You just talked to my roommate. He's leaving the country, but I'm still here. Can I send you fax you my resume?" Which I did, and then they said, "Okay, well, we'll do the interview." Well, the rest is history after that. And so it was kind of almost, it was a serendipitous event that made it happen. But if someone had told me back in 1991 when I walked into Memphis at the lowest level possible in a staff role in FedEx that this is what I would be doing 30 years from then, I would have thought I had a much better chance to play for the Memphis Grizzlies.
Well, when you did walk into the FedEx headquarters and you took that new job, you didn't know anybody in Memphis.
Yes.
And I guess it was kind of lonely, and you could have just as easily gone back to India, gone back home, but you didn't. What motivated you to tough it out?
Well, I think right away, what got me when I got into FedEx is really the job was very interesting. We were expanding into international, and I was, even though I was at the lowest level in the marketing function, I was put in the middle of this incredible project of international expansion, and it really, was fascinating. And so I got to see it, emerge from that level onwards. FedEx was a much smaller company. The international business was much smaller. and to develop a whole new business area and opportunity was so great, and it just kept going from there.
Well, exactly, and you know, it paid off, and you worked your way
Yes.
to the top with a lot of leadership roles along the way. And for the past few years, you've been working very closely with Fred Smith, the
Yes.
founder and CEO of FedEx. And from what I hear, Fred was treating you as sort of the last couple of years as an understudy, grooming you to be his successor. What are the most important leadership lessons you learned from him at that time?
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, working with Fred has been just one of the greatest things, you know, that has happened to me. You know, there's so many things, and especially in the last 2 or 3 years, after I was appointed COO, and the succession plan was pretty clear, especially during the pandemic when the company did some of the most important work in the history of our company, to be working really closely with him. So it's not just CEO school; it was history school, it was geography school, it was humanities school. So you put everything in context and perspective. It was just amazing. And you know, Fred has got the unique ability to connect this grand vision to the strategy, to the execution, to the tactics in a way that very, very few people can. And you know, I've just learned a whole lot from him. And you know, it's just a matter of great honor and pride for me that I get this opportunity, but also that you know, I'm succeeding somebody like him.
Well, you're clearly the boss now, although Fred is still the largest shareholder of FedEx, and he stays on as executive chairman.
Yes.
How often are you updating him now, or checking in with him, or asking his opinion on something? What are the sorts of things that he tells you to do?
I mean, obviously, he's available on the phone anytime I want him, and so we make it a point to at least sit down once a week and you know, just chat. And it could be about anything, and so it's a great relationship, and so you know, I look forward to those conversations because there's so much one can learn from him.
Well, the job description of any CEO running a Fortune 500 company has changed dramatically in the past few years. There are so many new demands and expectations of CEOs, whether it's from the employees or customers, shareholders, even sometimes from the public. Knowing all of that, how would you describe the way that you want to lead FedEx?
First of all, I want to be true to the core of FedEx, and that's what attracted me to FedEx in the first place, is the whole people culture. And so for me, it is make sure that culture continues going forward, that we have this people first culture, that we have respect our folks, that we make sure that we reward and recognize the right behavior, and you know, and then give the right expectations. And it doesn't matter where you are, it cuts across humanity. So for me, it's building on that bedrock, and then creating you know, what we want to create in the digital front, on the networks and so on, but don't forget where we came from.